come out, we should be able to speak to one of our guests, who's Nicholas Ashford. He's a professor at the MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He was one of the keynote speakers at the final session of the Regulating for Decent Work conference, which looked at the Global Commission on the Future of Work. So if we just come over here, we'll meet with Nicholas. Professor Ashford, hello.
How are you?
Good to see you.
Good.
Now, you've just finished up the last session of the
Right.
Regulating for Decent Work conference. The last session was about the Global Commission on the Future of Work.
Yes.
And you talked about how we can shape a better future of work for more people. You spoke at that. Could you give us an idea of your key messages to the room?
Well, first of all, you can't talk about the future of work unless you talk about the future of the economy, because the work is nested in much broader issues. And right now, we're under a crisis because we don't have high rates of growth. We have increasing amounts of unemployment, the de-skilling of the workforce, and of course, geographical tensions of all kinds. So we have to re-examine the source of growth for the economy, the source of people, and the fact that you just can't create enough purchasing power through wages for people. They've got to have an ownership interest in the technology of the future, because technology is the thing that produces wealth in this economy.
So the ownership of technology going into the future. Now, one of the key concerns of the future of work is, of course, technological change.
Right.
And we're talking about here today the human-centered future of work. But could you tell me, is the future of work human?
Well, the future of work is human, but of course, whether it's satisfying is another story, right? I mean, but people and the government, who represents the broader people, need to have a major role in planning the next direction in technological and economic growth. We cannot leave it totally to the private sector. Private sector has a role which is to execute the changes which are necessary as deemed by the populations, the workers, and basically the government. There is a sort of a historical retrenchment of the role of government since the neocons have come into power, but government's got to reclaim its role as the representative, really, of most of the people. Because of the great concentration of wealth in lesser and lesser hands, we really have to democratize the process of technology and growth.
Now, you've been here with another 400 or so academics over
Yes.
the last couple of days at the ILO. The MIT has a history of a collaboration with the ILO. Could you tell us a little bit about that sort of work we do together?
Well, there are many people in the work environment section of the business school who've had a lot of work with the ILO. But I'm not sure that as an institution, MIT has had all that much to do with the ILO. They're much more likely to be aligned with industrial sponsors and some philanthropy.
Okay.
But I mean, remember, MIT is the West Point of American industry.
Excellent. And talking about the response to your first question, taking this forward, what are the practical steps that governments can take? You spoke about the responsibility of governments there, and other players can take to ensure this sense of well-being amongst workers that we've been talking about over the last few days.
Well, I think they've got to ensure that workers get not only wages but have a result that is representative of sharing the benefits of the technology itself. Since we live in a technological era and there's not enough jobs and there won't be enough jobs, workers have to become owners to some extent. They also need to ensure labor protection. They need to make sure that unions have collective bargaining power rather than having them weakened. And they need to make sure that people across the board have sufficient purchasing power to lead a decent life. That's the role of the government.
Okay. And when we're looking at technology, we're looking at the future of work. Do you see big opportunities there also to help to reduce inequality, some of the inequalities you've been talking about?
Well, there are tremendous opportunities to reduce the inequality, but you have to tax wealth, and you have to tax excessive income, and you have to redistribute. You also have to democratize the process so it is not just the wealthy that basically formulate the agendas for government. I mean, they are controlling far too much of the direction that government takes. And I'm not talking just about this administration in Washington.
Okay, and you see a positive way forward. I mean, you've been here with academics now, but also the ILO brings together governments, workers and employers to try and find solutions to the issues that we're talking about. We're in the centenary year now for the ILO. What would your message be to the ILO in the centenary year as we look forward?
Well, I think it needs to continue to represent the role of labor as well as management in the tripartite process that makes up the ILO. I mean, it's maybe the only UN organization that really is tripartite, as opposed to UNEP and other organizations. So basically, we have to ensure fairness for people, whether they're working or they're not working. We have to see to it that unpaid work is remunerated. We have to make sure that the society is stable, and we have to make sure that the right technology, which does not displace labor, is put forward.
Professor Ashford, thank you very much for talking to us. Thank you.